Can we actually talk about the ineffable or the mysterious?
Yeah.
Because like I think that's super important to like really grok the fact that the knowing essence that is here right now is alive and aware, but it can't actually be known. But it's the illumination factor of all reality. Like it's literally the knowing essence that is right here talking and listening on both
Mm,
sides of the screen
mhm,
cannot itself be known because if it was
mm,
known, it would be an object within the essence that cannot be known.
mhm, mhm,
And
mhm,
so that is
mhm,
the great mystery right here in your immediate
mhm,
experience. Like people
mhm,
always wonder, like, what is the great mystery? As if it's some far out thing, as if it's some like big lofty thing. And it's like, no, the great mystery is the fact that you can't actually identify what it is that knows this now moment. You are the living mystery.
Oh, good sleep, dude. In one of my meditations last night, there was, what's his name? Sam Harris. He said something like, um, everything that you can like see, touch, taste, hear, basically all your senses are a vision created by the mind. And I've known that intellectually, but this time I like felt it. And it was really unifying in the sense of like, okay, literally everything I can possibly experience is within consciousness. And it was unifying that way. But then my mind, my identity got really scared, and it was this like very intense, isolating feeling and sense of separation of like, well, then what can I trust? And I was like, kind of like wigging out by, I had like a body reaction to it. And as I went through the day, I just was like, well, that too is an object in awareness, in consciousness. That like the me freaking out, the me like feeling, and like I could sit with it for a little while.
Did you notice? I want you to keep going, but did you notice the shift, like when you had that direct realization, that direct like that direct contact with the senses, and then all of a sudden the mind took hold of it, and there was a sort of felt energetic contraction. Did you notice
Mm,
when that happened?
totally.
Yeah,
I could
that's when the
definitely feel the
mind.
contraction.
That's when the mind like is like reels back from it. And this
Mhm,
happens to everybody.
mhm,
Like I know exactly what you're talking about. This happens to everybody. So you have that direct contact with your sensory perception, and it's
mhm,
like literally a gateway to the infinite. But
mhm,
all of a sudden, the mind is like, "Holy shit, no!" And then it tries to be like, it like the mind dissipates for a second, and there's this direct contact with reality, and almost immediately the mind like sucks it all back in and contracts like that infinite into right here and tries to regain its ground. And so like even in your story right there, I know exactly like where it was true perfect like direct reality, and then all of a sudden the mind contracts and like and then you kept explaining, but I wanted to point out that
yeah.
shift because it was right there in your
Mhm,
like I know exactly when it happened to you. But keep going with the story because what you're saying happens to everybody and I love it.
yeah. Well, and when and so like, and it's a question that's been on my mind for a while because sometimes when I'm doing open-eyed meditation, when the vision, your like eyes stay open long enough and the visions starts making like a room move and
Hmm.
like or like a haze over, and then it's like really apparent that like the inner world of the mind and the outer the world of the mind are actually part of the same screen.
Yep.
And like, and so I don't know. Yeah, and then so I for a long time I'm just like I don't know what to do with that, like what to, and I still don't, you know.
You don't do anything with it.
Yeah, yeah.
The mind is the one that wants to like uh
Mhm,
weaponize is too strong of a word, but like it's the mind that wants to like do something with
Do
it
something.
and it can't find. I mean, it can make up stories about how it can like employ this, but it won't ever successfully be able to do it. Like a lot of people have the same realization that you have, and then they try to like come up with a way that this can bolster a sense of self or bolster like a an identity. And so they
Mhm.
use it as a, like a prop for identity. So a lot of people that like purport spirituality and even awakening, and a lot of them really have had like true awakenings, but
Mhm.
then they like try to use it, you know what I mean? And it's in the trying to use it that corrupts it and makes it
Spiritual materialism, kind of.
yeah. It's spiritual materialism, spiritual egotism, and it's just not it. Like so many people do that, and there's really nothing wrong with it. At least it's a step towards the truth. You know what I mean? At least
Mhm.
they've like have had a glimpse. But yeah, there's nothing to do with it except to just be in direct contact with that true reality. Like to just allow it to be and move as it moves and bees
Mhm.
and you
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
are that, that's the only thing to do. That's the
Yeah,
only thing to
just
do.
to just continue to accept what it is.
Yeah, and then
Accept whatever is.
yes. Yes. And
Mhm.
but the thing that I like most want people to understand about this
Mhm.
is that people say, "Oh no, but I can't do that. I have commitments. I have a wife, I have kids, I have a job, I have all this stuff that I need to do." But they don't realize that there's an intelligence here. This intelligence
Mhm.
that is this also creates the universe. So, like,
Mhm.
what part of the mind thinks that it can outcreate the universe or make a
Mhm.
better version of your life than the universe has coalesced right here? You did
Mhm.
not create your birth. You did not create this reality. You're here, and this reality is here. And it's only the mind trying to manipulate that that creates this sense of individual identity separate from that. And it's
Mhm.
really just the merging with that, the merging
Mhm.
with this without interpretation and without story, in which you truly become present to the ultimate reality, the ultimate mysterious isness, and allowing that to be allows you to just be, and things just settle. Like the nervous energies settle, the desire to manipulate it settles, the desire for it to be any sort of way just kind of settles, and then it just kind of unfolds and you are that, and that's the most beautiful way to live,
Mhm.
because you are life at that point. You are the energy of life. Like the universe has coalesced in this now moment. How more special could it be?
Mhm.
It's so arrogant for the mind to think that it can create a better infinite than the present infinite. Like, why create a
Mhm.
story about infinity when infinity is already the greatest, most vastest thing there is?
Yeah. Well, and that's why it threw me for such a loop today because I've been I feel like recently I've been just resting outside of the narrative and the words that the mind constructs around reality. You know, it's like the term I put it was like I only wish to seek the great happiness. And you know, like when I'm on my walks with Duke, it's just like I recognize my mind going, and then I just choose to tune into everything else. And then there's just this cool freshness and sense of aliveness that I don't have to do anything about. A big part of that has been just resting in this the world around me, but then to like really acknowledge that all of this is a vision of consciousness. Yeah, just you kind of get what I'm saying.
I
What I'm
totally know
saying
what
is
you're
like,
saying. I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm enjoying watching you work through it because that's what needs to happen. And I'd love to help you work through it, but it's you who needs to work through it.
Yeah. Well, it's like I made like in the times where I can like rest in the stillness of what is and have that feeling of freshness and aliveness, part of it is like the enjoyment of seeing how everything that I see and sense becomes so much more rich and vibrant. But then to also recognize, like, I think, I think the way I kind of took it was like, then that's all a lie, and I can never know the truth. I could rest in a sense of truth and being that was outside of thoughts,
Hmm.
and I could recognize that they're all objects appearing. But the sense of being feels, it's like it's at the same time expansive, but also really grounding. And then when I kind of came to the realization that like everything is, um, you know, I'm not actually touching or feeling anything, it's just all interpreted,
Hmm.
is then it felt like very ungrounded,
Yeah.
and where I once, let the senses be my kind of grounding.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm
It's
saying?
totally, it's where you're at with this is a really interesting place to be because like part of you is holding on to like the story about it,
Yeah.
and the other half of you is recognizing the total illegitimacy of the story, and it's ready to, you got one foot in the infinite and one foot in story mode, and like
Hmm.
the push and pull of that in daily life can be really confusing and destabilizing,
Yeah, totally.
like not knowing where to step, or like am I the one stepping, or like not
Hmm.
knowing what direction to take, and then also knowing am I the one that's even picking the direction, and then not knowing, wait, is this the right thing to do, and then also not knowing, wait, is there a right thing to do, and am I the one choosing it, and like is there a wrong thing to do, and I want to be happy, I want to be joyful, I want to feel peace, and I want to feel love, and I want to feel freedom, and if I choose something else, does that contract these things and make these things disappear, and I don't want these things to disappear, and so what is the choice right here and now?
Hmm.
And like that choice, that like I was expanding out and making that choice more obvious, but in every moment those are the choices, and those
Hmm.
choices are always letting go. Like to have
Hmm.
those qualities, it's always letting go, surrendering to the
Hmm.
moment, and it can be that easy, surrendering to the moment.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you like, when there's a choice to be made, you don't make it. Like
Hmm.
just because you know there's no doer doesn't mean that there's nothing to be done. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Hmm.
Like it's
Totally.
it's very paradoxical, and you still do things,
Hmm.
but recognize that there is actually no substance behind that, and there is actually just the universe moving through this sense of you. And this sense of you is
Totally.
just a lens through which the infinite is looking.
One, and I've been also contemplating like free will, like
Mhm.
whether it even exists or not. And and I think I texted you, but like I had a moment when I was
I'd love to go through that
coming out
text
of,
at some point.
yeah, when I'm coming out of the shower where I was like drying my body, and it's a very habitual movement, but there was just this realization that it's not like the it's like the mistake is not like doing too much or not doing enough. The mistake is claiming ownership over the doing.
Hmm.
And then it was like, oh, it's like in like for a brief moment, there was just the experience of drying my body. There was no ownership of it,
Hmm.
you know, and it was very clear and simple.
Hmm.
It was just very matter of fact, not mysterious, but like for some reason, the notion of like that everything is, um, it's like the feeling I got when you know that like everything is created by consciousness, like everything is just a vision of it. Consciousness is creating everything, creating a vision of everything that I'm experiencing, and I'm not. So it's like this layer, it's this sensed layer barrier from actually experiencing being. But that's what my mind ran with.
Mm.
And like, in just talking this out now, I can see there's truth in that, but that's also a story that's preventing me from being present to what is right now. Like,
Can I
and
try to
not
collapse it for you
sure, yeah.
or help you collapse it? There's actually no separation between the story and pure being. The story is also just a manipulation of pure being.
Yeah,
When you can
yeah.
relax into that, like even the
Mm-hmm.
stories don't trouble you. You can actually find peace in actually being the story. And that's kind of where life comes into harmony. Like you can still ride the story. It's just
Yeah.
before you really join the story, like most of humanity is, they're totally living a story. And so there's this felt separation between the story mode and actual just pure presence. But
Mm-hmm.
in true reality, there is no separation between pure presence and story mode. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, understanding this sort of understanding re results in a sort of energetic collapse between story mode and pure being, in which
Mm-hmm.
just pure being becomes everything. Everything is just a manipulation of that pure being. And but knowing this, like the knowing of this is kind of what's required for that collapse to happen. And that
Mm-hmm.
collapse
Mm-hmm.
is kind
Mm-hmm.
of like the collapse of felt separation into just harmony,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
like it doesn't not like even corrupt stories, even the worst stories are still part of just pure being and part of felt harmony.
They're just another object in the experience of being, just as like this, or the sound of your voice, or it's
Right.
another aspect of, it's another expression of consciousness
Exactly.
as a form.
That's a great way to say it. It's like
Yeah.
at first it becomes necessary in order to gain a little bit of peace to first
Mm-hmm.
recognize that like, okay, I'm not what I am aware of. There's a
Mm-hmm.
difference between what I'm aware of and my awareness. And so at
Mm-hmm.
first it's necessary to sit in just awareness or just like the witnessing element
Mm-hmm.
of existence. And that allows a sort of like decoupling between pure
Mm-hmm.
being and the story. And once you feel enough kind of peace, there's then the second part of that, which is realizing, oh wait, but the story is just a movement of this pure being. It's just
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
story like it's just a movement or a manipulation of the pure being, but it's still just pure being. It's just moving now. And like when you can sink into that, then you rejoin life. You
Mm-hmm.
rejoin all of it. And
Yeah.
then it just becomes, yeah, just this kind of like blissful wholeness, even amongst apparent separation. But there's a recognition that there is nothing that's separate.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. It's it's kind of like my mind thinks that there's going to have to be this like painful struggle or breaking loose that's going to need to happen, like that it needs to figure something out. But then it seems that like really the solution to the problem is really just um, like you were saying, acknowledging that that too is a part of the expression of being, and also and then just letting it go. Like it's
Totally,
just like,
totally.
because I had a moment where I was walking Duke a couple weeks ago, and I was like thinking about, because I was like got into a little debate with like student friends about, it's like, is there free will? Like I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, because they were saying like, yeah, free will, and I'm like, I'm not sure. And then I was like,
Mm.
does does a tree have free will to grow to the sun? And I was like, I don't know that it does. I think it's just that, like, as awareness or sunlight touches us, We just are naturally growing into that direction, and suffering is like staying in the shade, you
Mm,
know. And it's like, if we have experiences that bring awareness, bring sunlight to our body, then we are going to grow in that direction regardless, because that's just the shedding of ignorance. But
mm,
I got, and I thought that was a neat analogy. But then I got into my head and was like thinking it through. Like, I don't know, is it free will? Is it free will? And then I like caught myself and I was like, oh, what am I experiencing right now? This is confusion. And then everything just went flattened out, or like not flattened out, but everything collapsed. And I was like, back into back in being. I was
mm.
like, yeah, that's my mind just got caught up, and then I saw it for what it was, and then I could just let it go. And I'm like, you know,
Totally. And like that like that entire play, like people love asking whether or not there's such thing as free will. And it's like ultimately, does it fucking matter? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
Like also what we're calling free will is just like what do we mean by that? Like if there's a choice to be made, am I the chooser of the choice? But then that's also assuming that there's like a separate identity separate from everything else. Like we can go into all sorts of levels of this. Like
yeah,
people think, well, like if given the choice, do I would I eat the peas or would I choose the pizza? And it's like, okay, well, are you totally dismissing your gut biome right now? Or are you totally dismissing like your blood sugar
yeah.
levels right now? Like what level are we talking about in terms of free will? Like are we just talking about does the mind have free will then? And then it's like really we're just creating more stories. Like it doesn't like it's not even
Yeah,
really like a thing. Like the mind loves creating arguments with itself, and ultimately whether or not there is free will just doesn't fucking matter. Like like
yeah,
like
yeah,
any like
yeah.
anything that we're calling free will is also just like a layer on reality that doesn't need to be that doesn't like do anything. Like, okay,
Mhm.
whether or not there's free will, is that going to change the way you act? You're still going to just do what you're going to do. Like,
Yeah.
and then, it's like, I don't like it's not, it's only an interesting argument on the level of philosophy. Like,
Mhm.
on the level of actual life and being, it's like, I don't know, just live.
That's why I like the term of like, the great mystery,
Hmm.
because it's just like there's just certain ineffable, there's there's like, there's just aspects of experience that are completely unknowable, and that
Hmm.
wanting to know anyway is a big part of the mind or the identity.
Totally. It's only the mind. Can we actually talk about the ineffable or the mysterious?
Yeah.
Because like I think that's super important to like really grok the fact that the knowing essence that is here right now is alive and aware, but it can't actually be known. But it's the illumination factor of all reality. Like it's literally the knowing essence that is right here talking and listening on both
Mm,
sides of the screen
mhm,
cannot itself be known because if it was
mm,
known, it would be an object within the essence that cannot be known.
mhm, mhm,
And
mhm,
so that is
mhm,
the great mystery right here in your immediate
mhm,
experience. Like people
mhm,
always wonder, like, what is the great mystery? As if it's some far out thing, as if it's some like big lofty thing. And it's like, no, the great mystery is the fact that you can't actually identify what it is that knows this now moment.
mhm, mhm,
You are the living mystery.
mhm.
That is your fundamental ultimate essence. And the more you can just let the fuck go and be that, the more life takes on this like lustrous being, no matter
Mhm,
what the story mode is playing out on top of that or
mhm.
within that or as that.
I don't know much to say.
Yeah, yeah, there's nothing to say. It's kind of like when we were in Big Sur and like we were just like just like watching the waves, but at some point there's like you totally forget that you're even there and you're just kind of like the presence of reality.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's kind of like what this is.
There's, yeah,
But you don't have to
there's this.
be watching something majestic like Big Sur waves in order to
Yeah.
be this presence of reality and enjoy the same sort of peace and love and joy and happiness and contentment that we felt in Big Sur. Like this is the reality you are in all circumstances.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Did I tell you that I'm doing Kung Fu?
No, but that's cool.
Dude, it's really cool. And what's additionally cool, because I love working on my body, and every movement is layered with like the possibilities of like five or six other movements. Every movement could go in like all these other different directions. But then, so I'm learning from one of my professors who's a few years older than me, and then I started staying for the skills portion on Saturday where his teacher teaches. He's like in his 80s. He's been doing this
Oh
for a long
wow.
time. And he just looks like this really calm old guy. He doesn't look like he's 80, but he moves so fast. And in one of the classes, we were talking about, or he was like describing, so he was talking about how like the founder of Kung Fu is Bodhidharma, who brought Buddhism from India to China and founded Chen, which then is Chen is what the practice of Chen. He brought Chen and Kung Fu, and then to China, and then Chen turned into Zen in Japan. And so he brought up the fact of like Bodhidharma brought basically Zen to China, and along with Buddhism and stuff, and Shaolin and Kung Fu and stuff. He started off with that, and then he went into like projecting the body into a punch, and he kept on using different words for go and turn around, and it got the body and the mind into this very like panoramic state because you're just listening for the cue and the right cue, and then to act immediately on it, and then he and then we were doing this partner drill where we're two people are facing each other and we're far enough apart that when we punch, we're not going to hit the other person. But basically, what did he say? He said he related it to like standing in a dark room and waiting for the fly to land on your hand.
Mm.
Um, and then him bringing up Zen, and then like and like the way he was cueing things. Immediately, I was like, oh no, I just have to like look. I have to like let go of the mind and just rest in presence. And then I could like respond. I could see my partner's, torso move the moment it moved, and I was already responding. And then I was like had to jump on the guy for every single time. Oh, and it was also seeing my professor practicing too, where everyone was just kind of like going and then going and getting into like a robotic kind of like pattern. I saw my professor, and he would just stop and just wait, and I could almost feel the opening, and then he would move, and then so I started just like letting it all go, and then just becoming that space, the emptiness, but like aliveness, the where everything's coming out of, and then moving from that. And so it's been really cool that like, and I'm also making connections with kung fu and Chinese medicine. Um, so it's been really, really fun. And I brought it up to because like I left the class, it's like, oh, he had to have been talking about like this
awareness. Like he had to have. And then I
Mm.
like brought it when I saw my professor at school the next week. I was like, was Sifu Ted like, was this what he's trying to get after? Like he goes, yes. He goes, yes. Because and and he's been doing more things like that, more like yin things, more receptive things. And so it's been really cool. And but then like my professor was like, yes, but you have to do that all the time.
Mhm.
Always be in that. The whole time you're in, as soon as you walk in to the dojo, or like not dojo, but into the building, because that's where you're at. Okay. So it's been cool.
And the mind will say, but it's so hard to be that all the time. But no, it's only hard for the mind. It's actually
Yeah.
already what you
Mm-hmm.
are all the time. It's just letting go of the interpretive filter of or
Mm-hmm.
the reactive mode filter of the mind. That
Mm-hmm.
needs to be pushed aside. And then this is already just what is. Then you're
Mm-hmm.
just joining natural reality. Then
It's
you're actually
foundation.
exactly.
It's under everything. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's under everything in every moment. It's always what it is. It's the ground of being, and everything else is like too far delayed to even say that it's a response to reality. Because once it responds, it's no longer reality. It's already like old. You know what I mean?
It's already gone.
It's already gone. The fly's already landed and left, Like
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's joining reality. That's all this really is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter whether he knows that that's the non-dual presence or not. Like you don't have to know these words in order to
Mhm.
know what reality is. And people access this from all sorts of different traditions with different names and call it different things.
Yeah. Well, and that's I, I was I like brought it up. I was like talking to him about it. And he goes, "Yeah, I've had teachers ask around indirectly questions that were kind of checking to see if I was there." He goes, "No one ever talks about it directly because then it ruins it."
Mm-hmm.
And and then or people get angry, you know. But
Yes.
but I brought up like the fact that I was like, this is so cool that it's like just built into like a martial art, and I was like, partly because like if I'm fighting someone and I don't exist, then like I'm gonna move so much more relaxed and fluidly, and then if I do die, like that's a gift because then I like die in that state, and that's like
Yeah.
a and then I was like, and then then my professor was like, and if you guys are both in it, then that's like a blessing. And then he goes, and then um, there's no reason to fight. you know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Totally.
yeah,
Totally. But if there does continue to be a fight, it's just like the essence of reality fighting the essence of reality with no like protective story mode built upon it. Like there's no you protecting this and them protecting that. It's just the one thing moving. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
It's the one thing moving. And that then a fight doesn't become like, oh no, I need to protect this. It's just like this dance. A fight to the death becomes a dance of presence. And like
Totally.
anything is enjoyed in as that, including
Yeah,
a fight to the death.
yeah, yeah,
Because death of what? You know?
yeah, totally.